Salutations, utopians. Hope all is well in your world. Global here. So there's been a video I've been wanting to get off for a while, and it's about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Such a polarizing dynamic, and I want to go ahead and unpack this a little bit. So first and foremost, as you all know, they had a big-time blockbuster deal involving Karl Towns and Julius Randle after he had hit his 10-year anniversary mark with the Minnesota Timberwolves, he being Karl Anthony Towns. One moment. Now, what was so fascinating about this is the fact that they made that big time trade, and the Knicks were already, even though they went on an amazing run after the trade deadline of acquiring OG Anunoby from the Toronto Raptors for Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, two foundational building blocks. The Knicks needed a two-way lockdown type of player after the way Jimmy Butler eviscerated the Knicks in the playoffs, and just overall not having a superior wing defender that was taller than 6'3". So that deal was fine, even though OG was on an expiring contract, and now he's committed to one of the worst deals in the NBA, if not the worst, at $212 million, often injured. Getting paid that kind of money is absolutely ridiculous, but I've already unleashed the politics behind that deal. So Minnesota's a small franchise and a small market, and more than and this is the original Luka trade, right? Because this is a franchise that is not necessarily a big city. Dallas is a bigger city, emerging city, but Minnesota's not a big market, so to speak, like a Chicago, New York, LA. And so you better be really damn worth it, and he's making around $60 million a year. The new collective bargaining agreement is very tricky, but for some reason the Knicks were able to have, after Bridges, it was easier to get Karl Towns and stay under the luxury tax than it was to re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein to a 3-year $85 million after the acquisition of Mikal Bridges, leaving them only able to offer $72.5 million. So naturally, Hartenstein, understandably so, much to my dismay, joined the Thunder. Okay, so here's the problem now. Minnesota is going into a year where they just had a change of ownership, right? And while the change of ownership, they've been also going through a crisis, this adapting to new lineups. Obviously, we all know Tim Connelly by now. He's a radical. And today, this seems to be the perfect timing. I've been waiting. I've been putting it off. But today, they made 2 key G League acquisitions. But I want to point you to a time. I want to point you to an article from CBS Sports that really is very telling. All right. This was during the Adrian Wojnarowski era. If you got time, go to his page, check him out. He's selling some of his merchandise to raise funds for the St. Bonaventure D1 men's basketball program. He's now the general manager, so they can go ahead and put resources towards just the overall quality of the program. Selling his cell phone and other memorabilia and merchandise, like the phone that broke the Paul George news, etc. Media presses and all that. From last year's star-studded draft that is turning out to be even more and more better than we all realized. But this was an article from CBS, and I'll try to do this as quickly as possible. Minnesota Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor never been a big spender, and understandably so. However, fast forward, he's never really had a roster in the recent years that was worth it. But I want to go to the second paragraph. According to ESPN, Adrian Wojnarowski documents that Lowry and Rodriguez submitted to the NBA. Taylor and the Carlyle Group, a possible source of funding as they attempted to close the purchase of the team, showed that their new ownership group planned for a payroll of $171 million next season. For reference, the projected luxury tax was $172, meaning that Rodriguez and Lowry reportedly plan to duck the tax entirely. In the context of Minnesota roster, do so would have been nearly impossible without gutting the team. Now Spotrac projects Minnesota's team salary for next season at $185.7. I'm sorry, 185.7. That figure mill will immediately jump 7 mil when Anthony Edwards makes an All-NBA team, which you know is a given. Fresh off the Olympics. This was before the Olympics. The contract he signed last summer includes a Rose Rule escalator that pushes the starting salary to 30%, 141 million. Minnesota's roster is close to 193. But it also be noted that the Timberwolves have only 10 players under contract for next season, even if the Timberwolves decide to roster only 14 players. 116 minimum salary, 200 million. This projection doesn't even include veteran minimum contracts for the end of their bench. At the time, this had Kyle Anderson and Monte Morris. Look, Rodriguez and Lore were indeed planning to duck the tax entirely. That would basically mean shedding 25 to 30. Minnesota could accomplish these by trading Jaden McDaniels, earning 22.6 mil, and Naz Reid roughly 14 mil, or Mike Conley roughly 10 million into someone's cap space. We can just stop right there. Today they announced the news of signing, because you get the gist. They're in cost-cutting mode. Glenn Taylor was the one that was willing to spend. Alex Rodriguez barely scraped together the money to afford, no disrespect, to afford to buy the team. Not to mention there might be potential relocations. Obviously, the Minnesota Timberwolves are not a West Coast team. They should be an Eastern Conference team. But I don't know to what degree how extreme Minnesota situation is right now. But today, mind you, they just said 37-year-old Mike Conley's contract is due to expire. Today, they brought up two players. McDaniels, they brought up a sharpshooter, Clark, who was shooting lights out a couple nights ago, I believe, against Oklahoma City Thunder, deservedly so, the call-up. Also, Nikhil Walker-Alexander was just doing a prime time. He's due for a contract this summer. Cousin of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, played amazing on both back-to-back nights against the Thunder. He's due for a contract extension for the Minnesota Timberwolves. He just did a special with ESPN yesterday. Then you got Bones Highland, formerly of the Clippers, who was originally drafted by now GM of the Timberwolves and formerly of the Denver Nuggets, Tim Connolly. So Bones Highland is probably on a Lonnie Walker-like deal where he's going to be signed now, but by next year expect serious play, even though Anthony Edwards is limping with a calf injury. But they got a star in Terrence Shannon, right? Who, had he not ran into legal problems, he probably would have been the National Player of the Year, according to Jay Bilas, instead of Zach Edey, but ran into some legal problems on a false accusation. So now he's on the Wolves bench. He's shining. Last game, he had a double-double, 18-10, looked like a first-team All-Defender. I don't know how long you're going to be able to keep that hidden. Rob Dillingham is looking better than Mike Conley. The team has a different spirit and energy when he's on the floor. He's been a consummate professional, no questioning what his minutes are despite the roller coaster. But what I'm saying is the bubble will burst eventually in Minnesota, and they're struggling to figure out this identity. Naz Reid is allegedly going to opt out of his contract. A storm is looming, long story short, in Minnesota. There's no way you can lose Naz Reid. You did sign on the eve of the season Rudy Gobert to his contract extension to $100 million, which is team friendly, even though the CBA is crunching. So, when you go back to the point, now let's get to Anthony Edwards. When you go back to the to the post-game press conference, when he says, "Hey man, I'm only 20-something. I don't want to play smart basketball. I want to get buckets. I don't want to be playing smart hoops and this and that." And then Finch, who was on the bench of the Houston Rockets when they moved James Harden to point guard, when D'Antoni was the head coach, he used to be Finch, who has a crazy, amazing resume. He was a part of that transition for James Harden to the one. And now you got Edwards, who's been experimenting a little bit. But I see now Finch is just putting Rob Dillingham at the one. I don't think people are really paying close enough attention to what's going on here. That is very telling to me that they said, you know what, skip the point guard experiment. We're just going to put Rob at the one. We're starting to give Terrence Shannon more minutes now that DiVincenzo has been out, who's now reportedly going to return this week, which is why I say this might be a sign now, develop, play in the G League, and punt on the Bones Highland until next year, so you already have your replacement ready in the chamber when Mike Conley leaves, because I guess this is a farewell tour. Similar to, like I said, Lonnie Walker, who just signed with Philadelphia. Salute to him. Mr. Pennsylvania. I think Kyle Lowry's on his last tour in the league. And so kind of identical situations. Speaking of identical, Xavier McDaniel, you got McDaniels and Alexander Walker. Remind me a lot of what New Orleans had going on with Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, and Brandon Ingram was the odd man out. But in this scenario with Minnesota, potentially this could be Anthony Edwards on the way out. I don't want to be the face of the league. I don't want to play this style of basketball. You've seen the Obama situation. Remember, there was also issues in the beginning of his career with his diet. Then he also is having paternity issues off the court. Now, you know, if anyone knows me, I don't like talking about players' personal lives or anything like that. But when you're talking about the face of a franchise who's due for a contract extension, probably wants to get paid the supermax, this is where it's like, you know what, no one's one bigger than the program. You understand where I'm going with all this now? This is a big deal, and I don't think it's getting enough headlines, or maybe the national media is not ready because everything has a timing on its cycle, I guess. But what's going on right now is fascinating to me because we just got done watching Luka. We seen the Wolves are willing to punt. Karl Towns was let go after 10 years. They chose Gobert over Towns, interesting enough, right? Because they could have let Gobert and Conley, and this is why I told people, I don't know why y'all keep saying the Knicks fleeced. You did not fleece the Wolves. If anything, it's an even move. They got someone who's parallel to match, but I still think that the Wolves are more versatile with Randall, especially when Karl Towns is now, guess what, moving back to the 4 like he did with the Timberwolves in his last season. When all else fails, remember, this is supposed to be the starting center in the East on the All-Star game, and now he's going to be moving over to power forward. When Mitchell Robinson gets back, who I will tell you is a generational defender, this is an all-time great elite big who we have been shorted out of and robbed of, so to speak, of being able to watch his graceful prime. This guy, Mitchell Robinson, really picks up off that pick and roll. In a pick and roll league, I watched this guy, nimble feet. Only other guy I ever seen as nimble as him as a 7-foot defender, rim protector of his stature, was Willie Cauley-Stein. Ironically, Karl Towns' partner at Kentucky, where he won I think they didn't win a national. I don't know. I don't know with Calipari if they won a national title or not. But Calipari even had Towns at the 4. And we're in a league where bigs are not that prevalent. Now it's starting to make a comeback. And he's got to slide over to the 4 as we're 24 games out from the playoffs. Huh? But Mitchell Robinson will clean. I told people, Mitchell Robinson is a generational defender. And ironically, the only other guy that is of his caliber was Willie Cauley-Stein in college. And Trill Willie is not in the league anymore. Though he did win a championship with Rock Familia, some secondary league, another like Ice Cube type league, but it was 5v5, and he dominated, and you could see him shooting now. But I guess that time came and went for him to be in the league. But I never seen a 7-footer who could just guard 1 through 5. He can pick up point guards and guard them just as good as any 2 guard, better than a lot of 2 guards, to be honest. It's truly polarizing to watch, fascinating to watch, right? And you got Mitchell Robinson. He's capable of the same thing. Mitchell kind of let people get in his ears and told him to get bigger, and he didn't need to. He should have just stayed himself. You know, a little bit of weight was cool, but you could tell he's really bulked up. To bang, I don't know with who. There's no one. I mean, you're not seeing Sabonis. You're not seeing Segun Knightley. You're not seeing Jokic like that. And you're not going to see him in the finals if you guys make it there, because I don't know if Denver can get that far right now as constructed. Still waiting for them to really click and you know, really snap into place and figure out their mojo. You know, they still have these nights where there's just like the Bucks, you know, underachieve or something. But honestly, you know, I'm just watching this situation, and we're really underestimating how significant this Minnesota situation. Enjoy what you're watching, because I'm telling you, something's going to shake. Someone is leaving. And it could be as minute as Conley and Walker Alexander, or it can get real serious like Anthony Edwards getting moved this offseason. And you know, how this playoffs and postseason, I have the Wolves going to the finals, even over Oklahoma City, even though Oklahoma more took their foot off the pedal Minnesota beat them. And that's the other thing I meant to get to. You make a comeback with him on the bench. They go on a 15-0 run, push it to overtime without him in the fourth quarter. They were down double digits, above 15, and he goes to the bench, and you guys go on a run. And now he's got a calf injury, and this might even continue. I know you need superstars once you get in the postseason, but how do you beat the best team in the West as soon as your star goes to the bench in the fourth, doesn't play in the fourth? Get to OT, still didn't really play, and got saved. And though he made a key block on Shea, while everyone's celebrating, I'm like, no, this, when you pair everything, this is not okay. There's a problem here. There's no, oh man, what a block. No. We got a big problem here in Minnesota. I'm trying to tell people. Ant's got to make some decisions, man. Because you are not, he's not over that high of, he's an Olymp. He thinks it's easy because it's like, it's all lined in perfectly for him. But what he's not realizing is, bro, you're on a special path. And you need to roll with that unbelievable, thunderous momentum you got with you. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he's thinking that happens every day. Bro, you know how many talented people wish they could have had an offense built around them, feature them? Isaiah Thomas had it with the Celtics. Look what happened the minute he had to go somewhere else and play within a role. You are in your kingdom. Why not compromise a little bit so you can keep the throne, then go try to go to another franchise like what you see with Luka? And trust me, the Luka ship, it's going to sail good all the way until it's not. And the minute the Lakers get eliminated, everyone's going to be like, after all that, because they don't got a big. Jackson Hayes, Alex Len, listen, quietly behind the scenes, everyone else in the league has a front line. The Lakers don't. You're just really good at the perimeter. But guess what? If LeBron has the ball or Luka has the ball, then you're only you're only at half speed. You're only at half strength. Meanwhile, teams like Dallas, we can get you on the perimeter with Kyrie. We can get it to AD. Sacramento, we can put Sabonis at the 4, Jonas at the 5. We got guards, Monk, DeRozan, Levine. Any given moment, we can play whatever you want to do. We can put Sabonis at the 5, Murray at the 4. They've just moved themselves up into a top elite team, class of team, elite heavyweight discussion. So I had hope for the Wolves. I don't know what's going on right now. They're always injured. They played the most games on the road before the All-Star break, so I cut them some slack. But I don't see any cohesion or chemistry being developed. And when your team is winning without your superstars, you're developing empty calories, because that's not the reality of what you're going to have to be in the big time. Even if Jaden McDaniels looks like prime KD out there at moments, locking up, getting his buckets, cool. But this discussion starts and ends with your alpha one, and your team is playing better without him. And life is more clear. And they're loaded with talent. Loaded enough to probably win a second round without him. Coach is elite. Talent is good enough to get man. And if you're and after everything I just read you, think about it. If you're A-Rod, I don't got to spend all that money and we could still win a series or two. Might not win a chip. I don't mind Anthony Edwards cursing and all that in interviews, but we got to get you to get your diet right. Okay, fix that. Got paternity issues now. Talking to Obama crazy. I don't give a damn about either political, so I'm just saying. It's not one thing. Oh, I don't want to play this way. I don't want to be the face of the league. So you just want to wake up every night and get buckets. We got some maturity issues. And it's not legal issues, but can I trust you with 300 M's? Definitely don't have to worry about, that's the main thing. No law breaking, but can I trust you with 300 M's? It's little stuff that's like when you start to think about it, you gotta nitpick though. that's making that investment look like, okay, he's worth it, but getting to that level where I almost have to tell you you're not bigger than the program. Sorry to tell it, break it to you, because they are loaded. They are loaded. They got a lot of talent, and McDaniels, we don't know what his ceiling is. Nas Reed, he's the perfect six man. You bring back Randall on an honorable deal. He's been injury prone. You get him at 85 mil, perhaps. He missed last season. He's missing a chunk of this year. Hey, we'll lock you in at 4-year 85. That's a win, but you'll be the starter, and we'll get Nas Reed to come off the bench. Keep this big trio as good as anybody. I don't know, y'all. Minnesota's got some problems to figure out. It could all be so simple if your lead two guard just locks in and really plays X's and O basketball. But if it's not his concern to win championships, to be the face of the league, then you got to skedaddle and you got to liquidate and get the most bang for your buck, because Terrence Shannon and Rob Dillingham looks like a great backcourt. McDaniels. Then you got Walker Alexander. Nas Reed off the second unit. That's not add Bones Highland. Clark is now added to the equation. Probably going to let DiVincenzo walk. I hope he goes back to the Knicks. He's got to understand you're not going to start anywhere in the league. Shooting guards grow on trees. But, yeah, they're going to be fine without Ant. It won't be a chip, but you're going to be highly competitive, and nobody's going to sleep on you, and those are going to be some hungry dogs over there and hungry wolves. Pun intended. If you're Ant, and then Ant, you're rolling the dice that you're going to go to a new environment and things are still going to be smooth. And even when you're winning, fans are going to be resentful that you didn't do it with Minnesota. A lot to think about. All this rumbling about Kevin Durant going to the Wolves after, I don't see them needing a Kevin Durant. What you need is your superstar to lead and be what he's supposed to be and get over it. God is in the details. Complaining about a calf injury. You need to walk better. You need to start moving better. Take that as a sign. You're out here on some bull. Minnesota can really go the distance, and it's just a mentality shift that I'm thinking is a problem right now over there. So, watch that situation closely. One of the best in the West might be in jeopardy, and a big shakeup will follow. I hope this video was informative. I'll try to do better next time, Utopians. Global out.